It's March 15, Ukraine Media Center continues its operation, and now we will be talking about the captured mercenaries from the global south countries and about what should their governments do to prevent their citizens from dying in someone else's war. All of us keep observing that lately the amount of mercenaries is growing in the Russian army, and today we will be able to see it with our own eyes and hear the real stories from the representatives of the global south who fight on the Russian side against Ukraine. Our guests today are Petro Yatsenko, representative of the Coordination Headquarters for the Treatment of Prisoners of War, and Vitalii Matviienko, spokesman for the state-run project I Want to Live. So, Mr. Petro, as I've mentioned, really, like every day, every month, there are more and more representatives of foreign countries being recruited by Russia to their armed forces. So what countries do they come from, and why does Russia resort to activities like that? Good afternoon. Now we're witnessing the situation when the mobilization of forced mobilization campaign in aggressor country, as well as recruiting campaign, runs its logical end, so to say. So there is no such a huge number of people who are ready to join the armed forces for money, and the Russian Federation started stumbling upon difficulties in recruiting Russians. So the mobilization resource of Russia is decreasing. We see that Russia intensified its efforts for recruitment, mobilization, and throwing at the front lines the citizens of the countries with very low income. The citizens of the countries that cannot make enough money at home. Right here you can see the result of those efforts of Russia. Represented here are the citizens of Nepal, 5 citizens of Nepal, 1 citizen of Cuba, a citizen of Sierra Leone, and a citizen of Somalia. For your better understanding, they get captured like 1 in 1,000 people. So basically those people who were captured by Ukrainian forces, they are lucky. They were lucky enough to save their lives and partially health, because among them there are also injured persons. Regardless of the fact that in fact they are mercenaries, so basically the Third Geneva Convention on Treatment of the Prisoners of War, it identifies mercenarship as something illegal, and the soldiers of fortune may only be convicted for being mercenaries. But as long as there are no court rulings so far, Ukraine fully complies with all, or observes all of their rights in accordance with Geneva Conventions. They get 3 times meal ratios per day, they get medical aid in case of necessity, and they enjoy humane treatment just like any other prisoner of war, any other Russian prisoner of war. As a country, we want to demonstrate to the citizens of those countries and other countries which are not represented here, but whose representatives fight against Ukrainians on Russian side, that first of all, these servicemen, those citizens, they were thrown as a cannon fodder because they were not trained. Some of them were circumvented. They were promised one thing, and it turned out that there is something completely different. And so that the citizens of those countries understand that even the poverty, even the absence of opportunity to improve your financial state at home is better than dying in someone else's land, fighting for someone else's interest, for someone else's army. Now I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Vitalii Matviienko, who is a representative of the state project I Want to Live, who provides a humanitarian chance to the mercenaries, even those who joined the Russian forces, even those who realize that they have nothing to do over there, they want to save their lives and health. It's their last chance to address this project, to get in touch with the Ukrainian authorities, and become a prisoner of Ukraine to be treated in accordance with Geneva Convention. So, Mr. Vitalii, can you please tell us what is the procedure for getting in touch with you, like for the foreign mercenaries? How can they get help through your project? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the question. Thank you very much for coming, for the interest to this topic. So the procedure is still the same. You have to leave your personal details in Telegram chatbot I Want to Live. In our case, talking about the foreign mercenaries, those who don't speak Russian, for them it's possible to leave the application through the chatbot or through the bot in Telegram or WhatsApp. They can get in touch using English language. It's no problem. We have experts who can translate. It's important to have the information communicated to such mercenaries who may see this today's press conference and understand that it's better to stay alive. It's better to be imprisoned as a prisoner of war by Ukraine, to stay in comfort conditions in accordance with Geneva Convention as it's supposed to be, and still have an opportunity to come back home so that their countries see it and initiate the process of negotiation, so that they understand that they are not supposed to send anybody here to Ukraine, so that they prevent Russian Federation from using this mobilization resource from financially unstable countries. So I'm reminding you, you have to get in touch with I Want to Live project, not only if you are Russian, if you're a representative of occupational Russian forces, but also if you're a mercenary fighting on Russian side. It's better for them to be taken as prisoner of war rather than killed. Mr. Petro, we understand that this is a war of Russia against Ukraine. It's not a war of global South countries or any other countries. Do those countries understand it, whose citizens are now fighting on Russian side? Well, basically by that fact that we're showing it now, we want to communicate it to the citizens and to the governments of those countries that there are consequences of such behavior. For example, if in international arena Cuba votes to support some Russian resolutions in the United Nations, ignoring Ukrainian peace proposals, and we see that there is no significant counteraction to prevent Cuban citizens from coming to Russia and dying in the front lines. This is why we want to show a citizen of Cuba who was lucky, but not all of them were lucky like him. There are countries that international arena, they naturally do not want their citizens to go to die for Russia, like India or Nepal, and demonstrating those citizens who really ended up in captivity. We're saying that probably their government should use some more efficient manners to make sure that the dozens and hundreds of those people don't get obfuscated by the recruiters who promise them the amounts of gold. You may ask them questions further on and hear their stories. So the measures taken should be way more efficient, because those citizens keep dying and losing their health. And if we're talking about a country that cares about their citizens, it will prevent them from a fate like this. But do those countries try to bring those who are captured by Ukraine back home to their countries? And Russia, I mean, they don't care about their citizens, so probably they care even less about foreigners, where in any case Russian Federation really doesn't have a lot of care about its citizens. We have citizens of Russian Federation captured whom Russia doesn't want to take back for more than 2 years. So talking about compassion to those whom they in fact circumvented and about whom they don't care at all, well, that's pretty difficult, you know. But if there is interest on part of the government of those countries, we may try to look for ways for negotiations about their release. Can you please share the information about the number of foreign mercenaries being captured by Ukraine and what countries do they represent on top of those represented here? So basically here there are 4 countries represented, but of course we cannot disclose the total number. Yes, there are more nations. It's a representative drawdown sample, so to say, and we understand that today or tomorrow there will be more citizens of other countries taken as prisoners of war, and we have to keep them, we have to take care of them, because we're a European country that complies with the Geneva Convention, and still we are interested to have those citizens taken away from the front lines so they don't have a chance to kill or injure a Ukrainian citizen, either military or civilian. This is why we are here, and these people are here for the very same purpose. So let's proceed to the stories of these people. It would be interesting to find out who are they, how did they join the Russian forces, where they were in the front lines, and how did they get captured. So who is ready to share their stories?
So just tell me what's the question again?
Please tell us where are you from, what did you do in your country, how did you arrive to Russian army, how long did you you were at war, and how did you come to Ukraine?
It's simple. My name is Adil. My name is Adil Muhammad. My family name is Muhammad. I'm 20 years old. I came to Russia for a good dream for my family, to raise my family in a good situation in the future. I just try to get a normal job, but when I see the army in Russia, they show me the big dream. Big dream that's I will be taking my family to the good future. I didn't know that I will be in the first line. So I just being dropped there without any knowing the language. The language is the most difficult problem.
Please keep your microphone a bit closer to your mouth.
Okay. So I told you the only problem is the language problem. So if I didn't, if I knew the language very good, I will not be in the first line, because I would drop there in Marinka.
Thank you. Maybe someone else?
Dario from Kuban. Dario's Cuba.
Шановні колеги, ми матимемо паралельний.
Dear colleagues, we have simultaneous translation, and Dario may speak Spanish. My name is Dario. joined the Russian forces because I needed money for my family. That was the reason. So how did you get into Russian army? Where have you been in the front lines, and how did you get captured? Well, I've seen an ad or I got a message as I was staying in Cuba that there are people being recruited in Russia to build something on the construction works. So I filled a form and I arrived at Russia, but I was never going to war. I didn't know I'm coming to war. And as soon as I arrived at Moscow, I was sent to the war. What has he been doing in Cuba? What was his occupation? Well, I got an indication as a teacher of mathematics and geography, and I was teaching geography. After that, I started doing what I really like, and it was music. So was he playing in a band? Yeah, I was invited to a number of bands to play there, but does he have a message to his compatriots? Do they really need to go to construction works to Russia? Definitely no. That was all an obfuscation. I thought I would get a real job, but I was sent to war. Thank you. Well, probably Mr. Bibek from Nepal may tell about his story. Can you please tell us what is your name, where are you from, what have you been doing at home, how did you get to Russian army, and how did you get captured?
Pals, my name is Vivek Khatri. I am studying in Russia. I am and I study. I am after 1 years after I am working the Russia and working and study. So after there is a financial problem, so I am after my parents also told me is the vacancy is a Russian army offense, so you go and not you go to a front lines as a just for security and after will this 1 year's contracts. So and after I am joined the army.
Excuse me, maybe it would be better your colleague from Nepal, because he knows English a bit better, so we can direct this question to Mr. Bikash. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Sir.
So what's your story?
Okay, my story. Okay, hello.
And please close the microphone to your mouth.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Vikas Rai. I'm from Nepal, and I'm 32 years old.
Closer.
Closer.
All right. And I have same story as other guys. I'm here. I was here in Russia, of course, for the money. And how I came to Russia is through tourist visa. And before, when I was in Nepal, I saw some videos on TikToks, and there was a guy, some guys who already joined Russian force there. I contacted them and I asked them how is the process and how is going on there. They told me everything is good, and they said me their job is not to go in front line. Our job is to supportive line, like medical line, like logistic line, suppliers line. So, and I asked them how is the process, and shall I come there? They said yes, you can come. And I decided to come to Russia, and I came and I joined the Russian army. So,
what can you say to your citizen of Nepal in your country? What they should do in case Russian agitators will say them to go to Russia?
If you see videos in TikTok about some bright future in Russia.
sorry, I didn't get your questions.
What would you like to say to people in Nepal if they want to come to Russia?
All right. First of all, it's not how to say. I think it's been a long time. It doesn't match the duration when I came and the situation right now. But that time, Nepalese people might not face the war, but we are the ones who face the wars, right? So it's very tough and very difficult, and it's very dangerous. And Nepalese brothers should not try to join. They should not see the dreams to be in army, like in modern age. Of course, do not try. I want to say like that.
Okay, so we have another guy from. Перепрошую.
I apologize. We have another prisoner of war from Africa, from Sierra Leone. Mr. Richard. Richard, are you ready to share your story?
Describe your story.
My name is Richard Kanu. I'm from Sierra Leone. I came in Russia on tourist visa, just to help my family. I have one son and one daughter. I have 2 children, and I'm taking care of my late brother's family also, because in our country we have a tradition, and when my brother died, passed away, so the family said I should marry my big brother's wife so I can take care of their family. And traditionally I did that. Then I find a comfortable place for them to live. I'm taking care of their children and my late brother's wife. So I save some money, and because our country is not 100% stable. You can check on YouTube. August 10, there was a lot of killing in our country, Sierra Leone. We lost a lot of policemen and civilian people. And also November 26. I was in Dubai, the 26th, because I'm waiting for my flight, late flight. There's another incident also in Israel. We'll lose a lot of people also. So I've been in Russia to find a good job and try to help myself and my family. Because this year my first daughter will sit a national exam to university. So I have to make a difference. I have suffered for a lot because I came from a very poor family. So the person who prepared my document from here, Russia, on tourist visa, I paid for 5-star hotel when I've come to Russia. But after I came to Russia, I was a place I don't know. Always talk on phone. After 1 week, 2 weeks, I said, I'm not going to sit like this. I left my family behind. I need to find job and start working immediately because I need to support my family. I have so many people behind me. And then he said, okay, Richard, don't worry. I will find job for you. After 2-3 days, and then he texted me, taxi will come and pick you, go to this place, you will start preparing your document for a job. I said, okay. So after the 2 days, and we started preparing our document, go to this, I will just sit down because I don't know the language. Then the person will do all the fill in all the form and then say signed, I signed. After we are done all the paperwork, and then say, Richard, just relax, very soon they will call you. I said, okay. So after 3 days, then the Federation of Russia, they called me on my phone, but I don't know the language. So I text the person also who was preparing my document. I texted him. I said, this is normal, but I don't know the language. Then he called directly to the Federation, and then they said, we have accepted Richard contract. Then the guy told me, Richard, in 2 days' time, you are going somewhere. They will take you somewhere. You're going to the office, then they will take you somewhere. I said, okay. I asked him which office. He said, no. He said, don't worry, you will know after you've been there. I said, okay. So after 2 days, then they sent me the address, and then the taxi came and collected me. So I go to the office, and I said, this is military office. They said, we are going to Rostov. I said, where Rostov is? I don't know Rostov. They said, hold on. They said, hold on. Very soon, within 1 hour time, we are leaving with train. I said, okay. So after 1 hour, it took us to the train station, and then we leave. We go to Rostov. We have been 2 days to 3 days. We are on the train, been to Rostov. Then I saw the military barracks. Then I text the man also. I said, Mr. Harry, where is this place? Why do you brought me to the barracks? I said, I don't need military job. I have military experience. I leave my job back in my country because of my health condition. I don't need military job. Then he said, Richard, don't worry. You are going to train there for 1 month or 1 week, 3 weeks or 4 weeks, 1 month. Then after that, you will come to St. Petersburg and work, or Moscow, you work there. I said, Mr. Harry, I don't need this. So immediately I called my family home. I told my mother that this is the situation. So my mother started crying and then said, hey, I don't expect you to be in the military. Yeah. You leave the military job because of your condition. Why you decided to be there? I said, I don't know, Mom. I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to be in the military. So we are trained. I've been in Rostov over 14 days. Yeah, from there, one evening at around 5-6 o'clock, they called our name that we should prepare. We are going to leave. We are going somewhere else. I said, okay, so we prepared. At 6-7 o'clock at night, the truck was parked, and then we load, go to another place. I don't know. We been there at late in the night at 11 o'clock. So I asked, which place is this? And I met some security Russian soldiers having their aftermark, their gun. They said, don't worry, tomorrow the commander will speak to you. I said, okay. So we have been there in the morning. The commander then tried to speak to us, but just speaking Russian language. I don't understand the language. So he used translator that we are in Ukraine. I say, what am I doing in Ukraine? I don't supposed to be here in Ukraine. What am I doing here in Ukraine? But before we leave Rostov, our phone, our passport, everything they collected from us. So I don't have any access to communicate with no one. And then we have been in security. Security, if we want to go to the toilet, security is behind us. If we want to go to do anything, security is behind us. We are not living far away from the camp. So we have been in Ukraine. We have been training there, the training grounds. After some weeks, then they said one day at the same hour at night also, because always they move us at night. They said, you are going another place. So we left at that place at 6 o'clock also. They took us to another place, and then we arrived there at 12 o'clock, yeah, midnight also. And then we met the commander, and the commander said, Richard, you guys, you have to sleep. You are going on patrol. You are going to on patrol. We are going to give you everything, then you are going on patrol.
Can you describe your treatment in Ukraine and what you can say to people in Sierra Leone? Is it worse to go to fight for money abroad?
When I surrendered, the commander, because we have stuck in a place where we stayed there for complete 6 days to 7 days without having food and water. So after the 6 to 7 days, and then the commander who was with us is not origin from Russian. It's from this country, but he speaks Russian language. So he was having the radio set. But because we are stuck down in the hold, the drone was sending the bomb and the tankers. So after we have been having food and water, then I said, Commander, go up and try to get communication for us. We have been here, we are dying of hunger, no water, no food. Then he stood up and then tried to get the signals. And then from then, he got the commanders, and then the commander said, okay, I will send somebody to you to bring food and water for you.
Yes, thank you. But what advice you can give to your citizens of Sierra Leone? Is it worse to go abroad to Ukraine, to front line to fight?
I want to tell my citizens of Sierra Leone, it's not good to come especially to go fight for money, because you are going in a country you don't know. You don't know their language, you don't know their country. So it's not good to go to war. Since I've been here, since the soldiers I surrendered, they have been treating me well. They treat me like a human. They gave me food, waters, and cloth. So I've been in the hostage. They treat me very well. The Ukrainian people treat me very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Пане Петро, ми почули, що об'єднують ці історії.
Mr. Petro, we've heard what is common in these stories. They've all come here to make some money. So, tracking all those stories, you probably already see how Russia is recruiting the foreign citizens So what is their classical line? It's a classical mercenarship. So when people who have absolutely nothing to do with armed conflict in Ukraine, the citizens of foreign countries, all of those people are people with very low level of income. They are ready for any adventure. They are being offered some good money. For example, to have a good life in Somalia, $200 is enough to have a good level of life. And when, you know, such people are being offered by Russians like $2,000 per month, and they tell them that they would be used as security guards or somewhere in the third line away from the front line, the temptation is quite big, and those people are ready to do anything for money. But there is a nuance. The period of life of such an infantryman in the front line is not even measured in days but in hours. So the lives of those mercenaries are very cheap for Russia, because not all of them get what they were promised, because the majority of them would either die or they would be just circumvented. So all of those promises are just sweet promises. For example, in Cuba, there is a state-approved system when they approve of sending their citizens to Ukraine for death. Other countries try to prevent it, and we are ready to support any such efforts so that the governments could use more efficient measures. And we also rely on publicity, because that's not an advantageous offer. Like we see one of these mercenaries has his hands burned, so that's not the best option you can get. Well, exchanging your life and health for $1,000 or even $2,000, it's a very bad example of business. It's dangerous, and on top of that, international law views these people as mercenaries who can be convicted, and they can become prisoners in case the court makes such a ruling. Obviously, Russia doesn't need them at all. In some poor countries, they are not needed either to take them back. And generally saying, we don't need them either, because our taxpayers, you and me, we work to maintain them. So in any case, this is of no advantage to anybody except for Putin's authorities. And we want to make sure that the fate of these people, well, on one hand, it's happy because they are alive, but on the other hand, it's a sad fate. But we want to give it publicity so it's known all around the world, specifically in the countries of their origin. Thank you very much, dear journalists. Do we have any questions on the floor? Ukrinform, Marina Kožihar. So what are the countries from where the biggest number of mercenaries is coming, and were there cases from when the governments of those countries were contacting you to set them free? And a question to the mercenaries: what was their salary as they were staying in the front lines? So let me answer the first part of the question. Well, you see, we have a representative sample. Like, you can imagine what is the number of people being captured. Well, it's a matter of luck, obviously. And in the same way, we know there are Indian citizens fighting on Russian side. They come in significant numbers in the front lines. Meanwhile, they're not represented here. So if we take a country with a low level of income of population, there is a high probability that some of the citizens of that country may be recruited, and they are being used by Russia as stormtroopers, cannon fodder, untrained, with absolutely low chance of survival. This is why they get captured as prisoners of war on regular basis, and we have general information about the existence of those flows. But if you want to ask a question about their salary, you may ask it directly from Mr. Dario from Cuba, for example. $250,000 rubles per month. And what was your salary in Cuba? Very low. Well, can you give equivalent in dollars? It's like $5. And if we convert rubles to dollars, like divided in like $5 he was getting as a musician. And what about 250,000 Russian rubles? It's like $2,000. So $5 in Cuba you were making per month or per day? It's like per month. But for what we understand, 250,000 rubles is something that he was promised. Did he really get anything? Yes, I got them in February.
About what real amount of money did you get from Russia for your work? What did Russia promise to you, and what money did you get?
They promised us to take $2,000 as 1 month, and the contract is 1 year. And I only received a bonus called, I don't know what exactly they call it, but it's bonus, 50,000 rubles. And the other amount we couldn't check our bank accounts because we don't have the internet or we don't have the phone to check our salaries.
Thank you.
Давайте Річарду. Так, прошу.
Ну, это такие, это деньги, это...
Well, they're talking about the money. The amount of contract was 195,000 rubles, and then 45,000. But did you really receive them? Yes, I did. I did receive that money. Thank you. Thank you. Another question.
For Zatnatsek Media. First, for the coordination headquarters, could you explain to the journalists and for the record the difference between, say, for instance, what Ukraine did with Foreign Legion, so it was in one category, and then what mercenaries are, so that we can make sure that that's on record? And then would anyone here like to just basically publicly say that you're definitely not making any comments under duress? Дякую.
Well, about the про різницю між для нас немає різниці, чи є це.
Well, for us it doesn't make any difference whether they are mercenaries or like volunteers, because as long as there is no court ruling, we're treating the mercenaries in the same way we're treating the prisoners of war who are serving in the Russian armed forces. This is stipulated by the international humanitarian law. As long as they are not identified as mercenaries by the court, we treat them as prisoners of war. There is no difference at all. Olena Chernyakova, TV channel Ukraine. Mr. Vitaly, a question to you. Yeah, what about the negative comments under pressure, or like making comments under pressure? Yeah.
On record.
Статистика з приводу
Well, I wanted to ask about the statistics about the I Want to Leave program, whether the number of applications has grown or not. And talking about the mercenaries, when we've seen in Ukraine that Russia started recruiting a lot of mercenaries, is it like the last half a year or a year? Well, talking about the statistics, yes, it's growing. For the time being, we have about 33,000 applications from Russian occupiers. And talking about the number of those who has already surrendered, it's more than 270 persons information about whom we can disclose. Well, obviously, they're not non-public due to the security reasons. The website has more than 250 million of visits, including about 50 million from Russian Federation. Yeah, we have about 50 to 100 applications per day, depending on a number of factors and the situation in the front lines. The project absolutely justified itself, and in view of the fact that Russia started using mercenaries from different countries quite actively, the project I Want to Leave offers an opportunity for such mercenaries to save their lives and to surrender to Ukraine. When did you notice that the number of mercenaries has started growing? Like, when did they first get captured? Like, what was the date or what? Yeah, let me give the floor to my colleague. Like, first, after the end of Wagner's, as soon as the flow of Russian prisoners has ended, different Storm Z, Storm V, all those private companies, you know, they've already exhausted their resources of prisoners. Then the number of mercenaries started growing from other countries. And talking about the previous question,
or do you tell everything today without any pressure?
Yes, we told press. No pressure in that.
Does everyone agree? No pressure. It's okay. It's only your opinion and your experience.
Yes.
Maybe you can explain why do you agree to participate in such a press conference, for example?
I agreed because I want the people of Ukraine to know a little bit about my story, and then how I got into the war. Now I've been here.
Estaba acordando de estar aquí para que las personas, ya sean de otras personas, ¿me entiendes? Sepan la verdadera historia.
Я погодився для того, щоб розповісти.
I've agreed so I can tell truth to other people so that they know what's going on. Everything I'm saying it based on my own will. I don't experience any pressure. I'm being treated very well. Next question, please. Alexander Khrebet, Kyiv Independent. I have two questions to Mr. Richard and to Mr. Petro. So what have you been doing before you left the service in Sierra Leone? And have you seen Russians in Sierra Leone, those who could theoretically be serving in a unit that was previously called private military company Wagner? And then I have another question to Mr. Petro, but first I would like to hear the answer to my first question.
I've been doing security job in my country, and then also I've taken care of a compound because the person is living in US. So I've taken care of his compound. I never saw that group I never heard about them because I always care about my job, care about my family. Never saw them.
І пане Петро, CNN писали, що в Україні
And Mr. Petro, CNN was saying that Russia recruited 15,000 Nepalese, and you mentioned the representative sample. Here are only 5 out of 15,000 present. Can you confirm this number? 15,000 Nepalese who were already deployed in Ukraine, not like captured as prisoners of war, but just deployed. As a coordination headquarters, we cannot comment any details like this. What we're doing, we're dealing with the problems of the Ukrainians who were captured as prisoners of war or missing in action, and also we deal with exchanges, prisoner exchanges, but the sample is really representative. We can judge by the number of those whom we were able to capture, whom the Russians were able to mobilize, in having circumvented them. Thank you. Next question.
For Petro, you mentioned a program in Cuba that is agreed by the Cuban authorities. Can you give us more details, and can you say if Dario's case is connected to this program? So was his recruiting somehow connected or allowed by the Cuban state?
Do you mean program recruiting by the government, the Cuban government? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's добре. Ми знаємо, що
Well, we know that the Cuban officials, they were submitting formal applications or they making official statements where they were saying that they don't mind their citizens to take part in the war against Ukraine as mercenaries. First, we were seeing that there were statements that those mercenaries, they were as if imprisoned, but in fact later it turned out that they are free. That's why we have no trust to such statements, and we see that the flow of people from Cuba is not subsiding. We see pictures, videos from Russian side in which we see a lot of people originating from Cuba. So it's important for us to make sure that these people understand what they come here for. And it's important for us to have Cuba, who supports Russia in international organizations, to have Cuba understand what are the consequences of their citizens ending up in our captivity. We know for sure that Russian recruiters feel themselves very comfortable at Cuba. It's not like we assert that it's a government-supported campaign, but we know that there is nobody countering it.
Lorenzo Cremonesi from Italian Daily Corriere della Sera from Milano. A question, first of all, to Mr. Petro and to maybe Richard, to one of the prisoners. What is your estimation? What is the percentage of foreign fighters, more or less, according with the number of people killed, the number of prisoners? I'm not asking you classify numbers, but what is your estimation today of the presence of foreign fighters and the first one or two nationalities? You mentioned Cuba, you mentioned Nepal, but these are the two main countries which are giving the number?
Перш за все, процент.
Well, first of all, the percentage of mercenaries is growing significantly. So first of all, they come from the African countries and countries like India, Nepal. We see the representatives of this country here, and also the countries with which former Soviet Union had close connections, like Cuba, probably partially Serbia, Balkan countries. In the same way, it can be late in American countries, but currently we don't have a lot of people coming from there in the front lines. So now, yes, the percentage of mercenaries is growing because Russians feel it more and more difficult to recruit and forcibly mobilize Russian citizens for this war.
As an estimation, 20%, 30%.
Я не можу вам сказати відсотків, тому що
I cannot give you the percentage because I'm not a Russian army general. Probably such details are available, but coordination headquarters deals with the issues of somewhat different kind.
Or anybody of the prisoners. What is your estimation? Do you see many foreigners? I understood you didn't stay much on the front line. You didn't stay much in the army, apparently, according to your testimonies. But do you have an estimation? What is the rate? Did you see many foreigners in the group in which you were? Thank you.
Well, basically, in that unit where I was serving, I didn't have an opportunity to see a lot of people, but there were only Cubans and Russians there. There were 5 Cubans, only 5 Cubans in my unit. I'm not a commander. I cannot say if there were more, but this is what I've really seen. Does anybody else want to add anything about other foreigners that you were seeing in the front lines? Have there been representatives of other countries apart from Cuba? No, at that area where I was, there were only Cubans and Russians. Yeah, like I've already said, no representatives of other countries.
to Nepali guys from Nepal, whether you saw any other Nepali citizens or other foreigners in Russian army.
Yes, of course. We saw people from other countries and many more from Nepal.
How many, estimation?
In my unit, we were 17 Nepali people, and 2 of them from...
17?
Yeah, 17 Nepalese people. And 2 are from African country, that means Cameroon.
It was in your local military unit only?
Yeah, it's included with me. Okay.
How many Russians were in your unit?
Russians, we don't have Russians. They used to give us order, and they used to take us.
Thank you. Наступне питання, прошу.
Another question, please.
For French national television, I have a question for you first. Is there any negotiation now going on between you and the countries of those people? And a question for you, how many of you surrendered and how many of you were arrested as you were fighting?
Okay, let's maybe start from the second question. But you should understand that this surrender process, freely surrender, has some rules. And in general, as we know, all of them was captured during the fighting.
Okay.
So not by Ukrainian governmental programs, because for foreigners, very difficult to know about such a program. So you should realize it.
So we could say that all of them were arrested as they were fighting.
That's right.
But because you were talking about surrendering, no, sir?
They say surrender like they was surrounded and they not by their goodwill.
I see. Okay.
So it's different. And the first question was, excuse me?
About the negotiation. Is there any? Because of course they don't want to go back to Russia. So how will it work for them?
Yeah, of course. It would be Ukraine don't need these prisoners of war as mercenaries, so we are interested to pass them to their homelands. And in case, for now, we have some limited interest from limited number of countries, because, you know, in some countries, the internal situation is very difficult, like Somalia, like Sierra Leone, and some countries are interested in participation of their citizens in such hostilities like Cuba. So some countries like India, like Nepal are interested, and of course, in case they want to have their citizens back, so we have a very good base for negotiations.
Прошу ваше запитання.
Thank you. Another question, please. Yaroslav Konashuk, Union. A question to everybody. You were mentioning already that the motive was the salary mostly. But I would like to ask, how have you been recruited? For example, where did you get the information? And did you have, I don't know, any people visiting you, maybe your friends, relatives, someone you know, who were coming to you, trying to recruit you to fight against Ukraine? And talking about your contracts, some of you mentioned 1-year contract. Was there opportunity of its early termination, given the circumstances or under some specific circumstances? And also, I don't know, that there was no like training, but maybe there was the phase of some coordination with the Russian army units. I don't know, some training camps, any battle training.
I know about the army soldiers with the posters in the streets because of my low income of the work inside Russia. I decided to go to the army, but they didn't show us the real job, what we will do in front line or a back line or something like that. We have a low language. We speak only English. We thought only it's a security guard or something like that, because it's a big job to be in the first line. So we thought about to go to the soldiers and got the passport and got the money and be having a good life about it.
So you were really fighting yourself? Fighting hard? I mean, have you been at the middle of the battle?
Yes, of course. I was in the first line for almost 4 days only, because 4 days you can see that guy, he's not trained well. He didn't know how to care on his aftermath. I lost on my aftermath. I didn't know how to do, what to speak, what to do. Also, the sir, he's told us about the program of surrendering. I didn't know about it. If I knew about it, I will do the same thing what he said about the surrendering.
Thank you. Maybe someone want to add? Okay.
A ver, una pregunta bien clara. Cuando yo vine en el avión, el día que yo vine, mi experiencia, vinimos 5 cubanos. De ellos no sé. Sí, espera, un momentico, con calma. Cuando vinimos 5 cubanos, conmigo 5. No sé qué hay de ellos. No recibimos preparación militar, no recibimos nada. Cuando me llevan Es decir, al búnker donde me capturan, veo 5 más. ¿Me entiendes? Es decir, que en mi estadística, aquellos 5 conmigo, más estos 5 conmigo, es decir, 4 y 4, debe ser 9, ¿no? 10. Sí, no, a ver, 5 allá conmigo, que veníamos en el avión conmigo, más 4 que me encontré, 9. Creo que mi estadística no falla.
Перекладіть, будь ласка, із запитання і відповідь.
Can you please translate both the question and the answer? So the question was like 5 Cubans, were there 5 Cubans on the plane or in your military unit? And the answer was that on the day that I was traveling to Russia, there were 5 Cubans with me on the plane, and here in Ukraine I've met like there were another 5 with me, so altogether it's like 9. And the contract was for 1 year. Yeah, talking about the duration of the contract, we signed it for 1 year. Thank you. Another question. Vadim Osipchuk, Fakti. Does Russian Federation show any interest in exchange of their third countries' prisoners of war, or maybe there is an interest on part of their governments? So if they're not exchanged, are they going to end up in court? Well, basically Russia doesn't care about Russian citizens captured by Ukrainian forces, and they have even less interest to the foreigners. So talking about their fate, yes, as a mercenaries, they can be convicted, but in any case, the conditions of their imprisonment will be humane in one way or another. They will be visited by the representatives of International Committee of Red Cross. They will be entitled to aid and stay in good conditions. Basically, those conditions may be better than in their homeland. So again, as I've mentioned it, as a European country, we ensure that all of the prisoners of war are provided with some basic level of services.
New York Times. I have a question for Dario and maybe Richard from Sierra Leone. Could you tell us a little bit how, from the start, you learned about working in Russia? Did you see any advertisement? Did you talk to people? Were you put in touch maybe with Russian citizens? Could you give us any details about that?
Well, I never had any contacts with any single Russian before. I got a message through Facebook where I was offered to proceed to a Telegram chat, which I did, and all the communication was going on there. And may I ask for details? Was it a Facebook ad or was it a personal message? No, it was not a private message. It was a Facebook ad. It was a post on Facebook, actually. It was a friend's post or like what? No. It was like a ad. It was not coming from a friend. I don't know where it came from. Just like any other post on Facebook. You just scroll it, and I'm seeing that Russia is offering opportunities for employment. So I've clicked on it to find out what other offers, what other opportunities. So yeah, again, it was not a post by my friend. I've just seen a post in Facebook that Russia is providing employment, they're looking for people. I clicked on it, I proceeded to Telegram chat where I got recruited. So can you please pass the mic for another story?
Did you see the information about this work in Russia?
I don't say anything about that on Facebook because I don't have the time to chat about Russian nationality and other things. I just came in Russian on tourist visa, then I was dumped like that.
Thank you. Наступне запитання.
Are there any countries that Ukraine would not enter into extradition for certain conditions? I know, like, as an American, we have countries that won't engage in extradition for various reasons. And then the last question for any of the mercenaries here, is there anything you would like to say to Ukrainian citizens about your participation and thoughts of what they endure for the war? Дякую.
Oh, well, it's under negotiations. It depends on, the process of the repatriation, depends on the negotiation, and of course we're taking into account a condition in their motherland country, and of course every prisoner of war has rights not to agree to be back to his country. We have these cases among Russian prisoners of war, for example. And in this case, they will stay till the end of the war in Ukrainian detention centers. But for mercenaries, of course, they have a bit different procedure, and it depends on the negotiations with their motherland, of course.
Дякую. У нас є час ще для одного запитання, якщо є бажання.
Thank you very much. We have time for another question.
True. Are these men being kept in the same prison, the same detention center as the Russian nationals?
The conditions for it's we have different, we have a network of detention centers, with main detention center in the western of Ukraine and in the central part of Ukraine, and of course the conditions are the same as for Russians because we have no separate conditions for mercenaries. So the ICRC, for example, can visit all these places and check the conditions too.
Разом вони утримуються з росіянами чи ні?
Because we have like in camps, these condition rules are like a big rooms with a lot of. It's not like in prison cells like that. So it's the same conditions and the same prisoners of war. For now, we keeping them as prisoners of war with other. With other prisoners of war. There's no difference.
І давайте ще одне запитання. Я бачила тут руку.
And we have time for real last question.
For your decision to went to Russia, that Russia invaded Ukraine, and what did you know about Ukraine at all? Thank you.
Maybe Bikash from Nepal. Did you understood the question? No.
Yeah. That Russia invaded Ukraine. That Russia attacked Ukraine. That Russia kill our people, kill children in Ukraine. Did you know that Russia started war in Ukraine before your decision to went to Russia and started job with Russia?
Yeah, I was known about that. I told you before, not you. My story is quite different. I made this decision for only money, and I followed those persons who already has been in army. They said me, we are just in supportive line, So we are going to support Russian people only. They said me so I decided to join Russian army. Thank you.
You can answer this question in English and Russian. What did you know about this Russian invasion to Ukraine before you agreed to participate in this hostilities as a mercenary? What do you know about this Russian invasion, about the war before you decided to do it?
Я себе
Yeah, I just came to Russia. I was extended a visa for 1 year. I was studying there for 3 months. Then I got a job there. I was doing different kinds of work. You know, there's a lot of problems at home. They want more money. So did you know about the war in Ukraine? Have you heard about the war in Ukraine? Well, I didn't hear a lot about the war, of what Russia was doing in Ukraine, about the children. But then I was working for 1 year. You know, I'm an Indian. There was an Indian person who told me there's yet another job with the army. He says, like, it's not like a war, it's just the army job. It's like support or supply. It's like you're just going to help something. Just make up your mind. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it a lot. Like that, there's a war going on. But this friend of mine, he says, like, no, it's no war. It's gonna be another type of job. And Yablishka, the Apple, this place in Moscow. And the friend there, he tells me, like, sign the contract and you get the job. There were 2 Russian interpreters who were saying, like, no, it's just a job. It's not a front line. It's like no war. It's like supply, some medical support maybe. And then I've ended up in like avant-garde. They say that there is a contract which doesn't say that there is some training or there is the job in the front lines. The contract was just saying, like, it's a support or supply. So I was taken by the bus to Mulino. It's a place in Russia. Where we were issued the uniform. And I've seen 13 Nepalese there, 1 Chinese, 2 French, 1 Arab, and we went to Sosnivka for training, tactical and medical training. We were doing range practice, like grenade throwing, 2-month training. And then my instructor tells me, so have you been at war? And I say, like, I don't know, I've never heard of war. So I'm telling him, I just work with the army, like medical support, supply. This is what I'm gonna do. And he tells me, no, you need to go to a front line. And this is when I went there for the first time. We had a group of 11 people. 6 o'clock in the morning, they left. We got 3 Nepalese wounded, 5 Russians wounded, and one friend of mine, a Nepalese. Like, I didn't know who is the adversary, who is the enemy. I was just taken to war to do the shooting. And then in the morning, many people were injured, and in the Russian brigade, I told them I don't want to go to war. I want to go back home. I just signed the contract to help, to support. And then he tells me, like, you signed the contract, you're supposed to go to war for 1 year, and after that year you go home. He says, like, take a 10 to 15 days rest. We were getting meals there, and then they brought us to the front lines again.
My name?
Так, як звати?
My name is Susan.
Susan, Subedi Susan.
Да.
Subedi Susan, yes. And then there was another team. I was alone, 1 Nepalese there, and there was 1 Chinese, 2. There were 25 people in total. We went to a different location. I have no idea. So 25 were foreigners, mercenaries, all of them 25 Nepalese. No, it was me Nepalese, who was wounded, and there were 4 Nepalese on the other team. Then we went to the front line. It was in the morning, and he tells me, like, stay here for a while. So they started shooting. I didn't know what to do. So then we went back to dig something. We planted something and then we got back.
To add something?
Yeah,
Richard.
In our group, because they sent us early to the war, because after we known that we have been in Ukraine, then we go to the commander that we don't want the contract again, because we have some foreigners, like we have 3 Nepalese, 2 Egyptians, 1 Jordan, and 1 country, Kazakhstan, yes. So we go to the commander, we say we don't need this contract. So every day when we go to for trainings and come back to the camp, we go and meet the commander. We don't want this contract. So they decided to stand out immediately to the front line for we not to disturb them.
І так розширилась географія найманців для нашого розуміння.
Так, тобто вже і Казахстан там бере участь.
This is how the geography of mercenaries is spreading, you see.
Ірак, Йорданія.
So Jordan, Iraq, Kazakhstan, 2 French. You can imagine these people Russia tries to pull from all over the world to fight in our land. Well, I want to thank everybody who joined us today. Today we've heard the stories of the mercenaries from the countries of the global south, and we were talking about the preventive measures their governments should take to prevent their citizens from dying in someone else's war. Please, cameras off. Thank you.